Hey there, sixth graders, it's Mr. Byrne. This is our last geometry video. And today we're going to talk about volume. So we've been working on finding the area of things, right? So we can find the length of things, we can find the area of things in square units. Today we're going to talk about finding the volume. So let's start with my easy shape right here, right? I have my rectangle, it's a 4 by 3. If I find the area, I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or I could measure and say, well, this side is 3 cubes. I'm not gonna mark how long they are right now. They're like an inch. And 4 cubes. So if I were to find the area, it would be 3 times 4 to get 12 square inches, because these are each squares. But within volume, we have a third dimension, right? Things are 3D now. So now I have a 4 by 3 by however tall it is, okay? So if we're looking for the volume of something, now we're multiplying all 3 sides instead of just the height and the base, right? So if we're looking at volume, I'll give you the equation right here before we do it. Volume equals, so let's do V this time instead of A for area. Volume equals the length times the width times the height. Okay? Now you could call either of those the base because it's sitting on the base, but when we're working with volume, length times width times height is probably the easiest. So now let's look at our cube again here. So I have my cube. It doesn't stay together totally, but you get it. I have a length, I have a width, and I have a height. All right? These shapes you've already looked at in your assignment, they all had length, they all had width, they all had height. So let's go ahead and count, and we'll replace those letters with some numbers. So I know I have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to call that the width, 3 inches. I'm going to call this the length, 1, 2, 3, 4 across. And then I'm going to look at the height. How tall is it? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'll put my cube aside. Now I have 3 different measurements here. All right. So what that means is it's basically the same thing. We're just going to multiply them all together. You can still use your calculator for it, but we have to write the answer slightly differently. So let's go ahead and multiply. I'm going to do 4 and 5 first, because I know 4 times 5 is 20 inches times 3 equals 60 inches. Now here's the change right here. Instead of having a square where we're only multiplying 2 things, so we get square inches. This is a square. Now we have cubes. So we're multiplying 1, 2, 3 things. So this is inches cubed. We're no longer measuring how many squares can fit in something. We're measuring how many cubes can fit in something. All right. In this case, they're inch-sized cubes. So I could, if I had a box this size and somebody said, how many cubes could you fit in there? I know, okay, I could fit 60 cubes in there. If I took this whole thing apart, it might not look like 60, but if I took it all the way apart, you could count. There's 60. See, there's 12 on the top one. There's 12 on the next one. There's 12 on the next one. There's 12 on the next one. So I have all these layers of 12 cubes all just stacked up. And that's how you get volume. So when you write your answer there, you need to say 60 inches cubed with the 3 because it's 3-dimensional, or 60 cubic inches. Okay? So that's the basics of volume. I just want you to understand what volume really means there. I'm trying not to make this video too long, so we're going to go ahead and move on to some other questions here. So here's another cube that I have. I have a cube here. I keep calling it a cube. I guess it's a rectangular prism because cubes have the same side lengths. This is a rectangular prism. it has the length of 10, it has the width of 3, and it has the height of 6. So all I'm going to do is use my equation, volume equals length times width times height, and go, okay, 10 times width, 3 times height, 6, and I'll solve it. So let's do 3 times 6 is 18, times 10 equals 180. Let's figure out what kind of units I put. Inches with the little 3, which means cubed. That's how you read that, 180 inches cubed. A lot of people are reading the area as like meter 2 or m2. That would be called squared, and this would be called cubed. So 180 inches cubed. All right? Now here's the hardest part. I think volume itself is pretty easy, but we're going to get into problems that look like this. They have fractional sides, and we haven't done fractions since the very beginning. So I'm going to do a little review of fractions. All right? So let's set up our equation first. I know volume equals the length times the width times the height. So I'm going to say, okay, the length is 1.5 centimeters times 1.5 centimeters times 4.5 centimeters. Okay. The problem is a lot of people are going to want to go like this. I'm going to put it in a red pen so that you know this is not right. A lot of people go, okay, well, 1 times 1 times 4 is 4, and a half times a half is a fourth, times a half is an eighth. That's not the way it's going to work, all right? You got to remember when you're multiplying these things that you have to multiply all the pieces all together. Completely, if I'm being completely honest, the easiest way to do this is to convert all of these things into decimals. So down here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say 1.5, here, I'll rewrite it for you, times 1.5 times 1.5, or 4.5. So we have 1.5. I need to write that as a decimal to make this easiest. I know that 1.5 means a half, so it's 1.5. I know over here, a half is 0.5, so 1.5, and I know over here, it's 4.5, okay? If you forget fractions, remember you can put that in your calculator as 1 divided by 2, and it'll come out with 0.5, and then you'll know what the fraction or what the decimal is going to be, okay? So if I go ahead and I do this, and I should have grabbed a calculator because I don't know that in my head. I go 1.5 times 1.5 times 4.5, and I end up with 10.125 centimeters cubed. 10.125 centimeters cubed, or 10.125 cubic centimeters. Okay? I just want you to realize that when you're multiplying fractions like this, you can't just do it the way I did up here. All right? Another way to do it would be to go, okay, well, 1.5 times 1.5. You really got to break that up into a cube or a square here and say, okay, well, 1.5 times 1.5. So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times a half is a half. Times a half. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. And then you have to add all those things together. That's why I don't really like to do it that way, because that would be 1. That would be another 1. So that's 2 and a fourth. That's a lot of work. I'm telling you, converting the fractions into decimals is going to be your easiest way to do it. All right? I know I covered a lot of things now, so please go back and rewatch it and ask your teacher if you have help. I know most of you are back here at school now, so there's no reason not to. And especially if you're at home, make sure you're asking for help as well. Thanks for watching. Good luck with volume, and then we will start a new unit after this. See ya.